I'm Tim, the Brand Weaver, and this is Branding for Breweries, the podcast that helps you grow your brewery, build a better brand, and connect with more drinkers. Each week, I'm joined by the brightest minds in the beer world, sharing practical tips to help your brewery stand out and sell more beer. Let's get stuck in. What up, 24-hour party people? 'Tis I, Tim the Brand Weaver, and this is going to be a wicked show. I can almost give you a Brand Weaver guarantee. Not only that, those of you who are tuning in via video get treated to a massive red spot that I've developed on my nose, so I look like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Blooming Reindeer. But hey, that's enough about my nose. Let's talk about the show that's coming up today. This is a special show. It's the first time I've done anything like this before. It's not just me and a guest. It is three phenomenal people. My friends, my collective family are joining me on the show. Yes, I've got the full Brand Weaver collective. The wonderful Jack, the amazing Matty, and the delightful Harrie will all be joining me live today to talk about the collective, their knowledge around strategy, identity design, and marketing. And of course, if you stick around to the end, we'll also have a little chinwag about what we're going to be doing at BrFw&x this year, because 3/4 of us will be donning the stage. That's 3 out of 4 of us, not 3/4 of a person's body. We'll be joining everyone on stage and having a right old good time. So let's get everyone on the stage or into the room and let's have a chat. We got Jack, we got Matty, we got Harrie. Yay!
Hello.
Howdy.
Hi guys. We all good?
Good morning. Excellent. Excellent.
Yeah, fabulous. Thank you.
Wonderful stuff. I am so excited that everyone is in this chat today. This is going to be mega. I think I should start just by setting some foundations for people listening today, that the premise of the collective is to support independent breweries. We are all unapologetically passionate about beer and helping those indie breweries thrive. Well, yeah, more than survive, but thrive and really make a name for themselves. It's this idea. I started with the passion to level the playing field for independent breweries. It's unfair that only the big breweries have massive budgets and get to have the in-house branding and marketing teams and do big activations, when some breweries just need a little bit of support, a little bit of guidance, a little bit of creativity, and they can do wonderful things. And hence we are all here, officially announced December last year, like an early Christmas gift to the independent beer world, if that doesn't sound too egotistical in any way, shape or form. So shall we have a chat, guys? Let's have a conversation, eh? I'll tell you what, to help people, let's go around the room and in a traditional blind date fashion, what's your name and where'd you come from? And we'll start with Harrie. Who are you, mate? What should we know you for?
I'm Harrie Kelly, originally from down south, but I've lived up north and up in Scotland a little bit here and there for the last few years. I guess my sort of bread and butter is beer branding. So I cut my teeth working at Northern Monk years ago, and since then I've worked with brands like Brewery, Osset and Salt, and then Windsor and Eton Brewery, and now really enjoy navigating a bit of a mix of proper cask brands as well as more craft beer, sort of hypey brands. So yes, I enjoy the full breadth of British brewing.
Booyah. And this is not your first time on the show, is it, Harrie?
It isn't. We did a little bit of a chinwag last summer, I think.
Indeed.
Which was very sweet. But yeah, great to be here.
And that's, I suppose, where our connection and our relationship started to build from that podcast onwards, knowing your skill set and expertise, and very happy that we're now doing this together. It's wicked. And indeed working on our very first project as we speak. I don't know if we can talk about that. That's kind of a bit secret maybe right now.
Keep it slightly secret. I know. I mean, I've worked in-house many times before going consultancy in the past year or so, and it can be quite a lonely world being an in-house marketer at a brewery. So it's amazing, and even consulting can be similar in a different way, but having a crew like this is quite amazing and unique actually, and challenging each other's thinking in the right way has been really fun so far.
Oh, 100%. Even in such a short time, like seeing how that little bit of challenge can make something so much better is phenomenal. Mm. And talking of the crew, Matty, who are you? What do you do, mate?
So I'm Matty McMullen. I'm the heading up part of the design for the collective, and I don't know if people in the beer industry may have seen me around. I've managed to turn an obsession with craft beer into a profession. So for the last 10 years, I've been living in London and consuming many beers from many different breweries. Originally, I'm from Sydney, Australia. I think, well, some of you can kind of see some of the brands behind me. I work with Pillars Brewery in East London. And late last year, I began work with Two Flints in Windsor. And worked with quite a few breweries over the years. And it's pretty much my area of focus now. So, which is the dream as a massive beer fan. And it's super exciting. When Tim first approached me about this idea of a collective, like, I just work on my own these days. And I agree with Harrie. It's like, you get pretty lonely, and sometimes you kind of try to take on too much yourself. And so it's really good to even just to chat with the other three about what's going on in the market, who's doing what, or what are good ideas or bad ideas. And, and I'm like writing stuff down that I hear in our chats as like information for myself. So it's a huge resource even in that sense. So I'm really excited for us to work together and for this conversation as well. So
I think that's a big thing, like you say, Matty, that even in our chats that we have, we're chatting like every week, and the stuff that's coming up, we actively need to try and share more with the world. So people stay tuned, because there's going to be a lot more content coming out, I should imagine. Talking of content, talking of regular awareness, let's bring Jack into the room, right? Jack, who are you and what do you do, my boy?
I am Jack Coomber. I am the marketing side of the collective. I cut my cloth for 12 years in sports supplementation, but I've always been beer adjacent. It's always been my passion. All of my friends work at some of the biggest breweries in London across the country. And then when traveling 2 years ago, after leaving the sports supplement world, I ran out of money and started to start my own freelancing, and made a sort of pact with myself that I'd only do stuff that I felt really passionate about. And now that's brought me back to the beer world, which I've been trying to get into and develop my skills in. And going back onto what Matty said about the knowledge equity that we have here, just in some of our conversations, I've learned so much more about the other side of the prettiness that is branding, as well as the marketing side.
Beautiful. So for those people who don't know about the collective, we're offering kind of like 3 packages, deliverables, or 3 phases that we work in. So we've got strategy, which Harrie and I work on. We've got the visual design side of things that, of course, Matty is phenomenal at, and I do a little bit of, and then we've got Jack with the marketing side of things. So that's how we're going to structure our chat for the next 30 minutes or so, hopefully deep diving into each of those sections to get an idea as to how everyone thinks, and of course provide you with a little bit of value and fun along the way, listeners. So Harrie, let's get stuck in with you, mate. Right, the role of strategy, both you and I know this from conversations with many breweries, that it's a thing that is almost like skipped or overlooked a lot of the time. Why do they skip strategies, and why shouldn't they be skipping their brand strategy?
I think the phrase brand strategy is really quite intimidating for a lot of people, and myself included sometimes. I think before I've started really using those actual terms, like I think you think of a strategy and you picture a large document that's signposted clearly, and it goes into great detail on all these different things like market research that you might not think you'd ever be able to access or know how to get stuck in with at all. But actually, at its core, I think brand strategy is sort of knowing what you're doing and why. And it can be as simple as that. If people think of branding, especially within a beer context, I have it all the time when friends will say, "Oh, what is it you actually do though?" And you might pick up a can of beer and go, "See how this looks?" My work feeds into that massively, and visual identity is a huge part of brand. How X Brewery speaks on Instagram, that's part of what I do. It all falls under brand. How it shows up in a pub or an advert, that is brand. But at its core, the strategy is what underpins those deliverables. I think to simplify again, in terms of knowing what you're doing and why, strategies around knowing who your customers are, who your consumers are, understanding your target market. Again, how you get there can be quite simple and different depending on what sort of setup you have and what you have access to financially or in terms of human resource. It can be simple things like having conversations with your network or your regulars or your loyal fans, or speaking to other people in your industry who you might see a similar overlap with in terms of your consumers. It's about knowing your product, what you're great at, why you're doing it, how it might fit. Yes, an amazing craft lager might be an amazing thing to do and show brewing prowess and be your dream output, but actually how you're going to compete with much bigger lager brands, say, or how you might actually get an on-trade presence if that's the dream, that crispy pint. It's just forcing you to question why you're making decisions and really get under the bonnet of why and how they might work. I think all the basic questions really that a brewing business ought to be asking around target market, route to market, and product itself, all these things are baked into brand strategy at its core. Like when we work together, Tim, for example, like one of the first things we'll do is really try and understand a brand, and as part of that, work out who a target market is, what current drinkers are like, what dream drinkers are like, what other key stakeholders or people of interest are. You really dig into that and things like product portfolio, and then you come around to things like visuals and how it rolls out and tone of voice, etc.
Yeah, I've seen that time and time before, and like Matty, I'd be interested to get your spin on it. But when you have a conversation with a brewery and they're like, oh, what, there's all this stuff that you do before you make a good looking label or a lens or something, it's almost like an epiphany, because I think there's the mindset that something has to happen before that. But maybe, like you say, Harry, that word of what a brand strategy is quite an off-putting phrase. Maybe it's a little bit too corporate. Like, Matty, have you had that kind of epiphany moment with breweries in the past?
Yeah, I have. And I think it's, I think you sometimes get a bit blinkered in and just think about just the beer and making the beer. But as the market stands right now, the beer quality should be excellent. And that's your entry level. I like to describe it as, beyond the beer. Like, what are we considering? Exactly like what Harrie has said, is like, why are you doing this? And why should someone choose to go with you? Like, in such a competitive market, you need to differentiate somehow. Everyone is, the standard, particularly in craft beer, is so high. How can you help to influence the decision making of your consumer?
And Jack, having a solid strategy, that's got to help from a marketing perspective, right?
Yeah, it essentially gives you a direction of where to travel. Marketing without a strategy is, throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks, and seeing if it resonates with your audience. So you're doing a basically long-winded testing period, rather than if you had that all dialed in and you handed that over to whoever does your marketing, they at least have a starting point of what they're doing, how they're storytelling, what it is beyond the product. Like Matty was saying, brewing great beer is not a brand, it is a prerequisite for your business. It shouldn't be let's make the beer better. It is the starting point of where you should be.
I suppose, like, Harrie, coming back to you off the back of that, the whole strategy thing, and I've been in agencies before where they've gone like, yeah, we're going to do like a purpose or a vision finding workshop, and we're going to turn it into a PDF, and then that sits on a hard drive there, and it was almost a tick box exercise a lot of the time. If a strategy is done well, what should that look like, and how does that influence everything around it?
We were actually having a really good group discussion around this last week, and having an anchor of a solid brand strategy and a genuine understanding across your business, ideally not just in marketing, especially in sales as well, where your team understand what your brand is It enables you to make tactical and well-considered decisions on what you do and don't take on. There can be a hell of a lot of distractions working in such an exciting world as beer. There can be amazing opportunities that crop up. There could be collaborations that you might be thinking about. There could be an event that you might want to jump on. But having these are examples where having that brand clarity enables you to think, great, this is on paper a good opportunity. However, does it work for us? And is it worth us spending our time and energy doing? Which in a lot of cases, independent brewers don't have that much time and energy to spare, you know. I think it was Jack, maybe last week, was speaking about the importance of having permission to say no. Having permission to say no to a certain activity or idea, or maybe quick fire brand exercise. This goes across the business. And if your MD through to your sort of marketing junior have an idea of what your brand is and are very clear on it, there should be alignment on what is worth saying yes and no to, and you'll naturally get into the habit of using strategy in your everyday. If you do skip strategy, it can do all sorts of things that, as it would in any industry, it can dilute your brand by having a lack of uniformity across your assets. It can disillusion customers if they keep seeing your brand showing up in a different way each time. But also, to just put it really plainly, it can waste so much time, and it keeps going down to efficiency, time and energy. And I know that's not the sexiest way of speaking about branding, but within the context of the world that we work in, these things are really important. And if you are getting 3 months into a product launch, for example, a big product launch, and then who knows, you've got a opportunity of a supermarket and they want to see your brand story and how it got there and your background. If you're then working backwards, trying to sort of shove in brand values and metrics for success and things that your brand cares about that you hadn't quite thought about before, can get really murky and actually just extremely time consuming.
I think the other thing is, well, I'd imagine it's the concept of, to a lot of brewery owners or workers in brewers, like, oh, it just feels like a little bit boring. Like, I don't necessarily want to do that work. Because like you said, like shiny object syndrome, oh, wouldn't it be so much more exciting if we explored releasing this new beer, or we did this funky thing or put on that event? But having a foundation like so streamlines everything. Like we've seen it time and time again. Like if you get that in place, get a little bit of help from, you know, maybe some nice people like ourselves, then you free up so much more time going forward to do the things that are really exciting, but they remain on brand and in the right direction.
Mm-hmm. And it's fun. I mean, I'm a nerd for it, but it can be really fun. And you don't need to have an all singing, all dancing, huge strategy document PDF at the end of the day. It depends on what your business is, how big a brewery you have, what external or internal resource you have. But making sure that you know who you are, who you speak to, things you would or wouldn't do, and ideally your tone of voice, how you speak, how you operate, how you show up, and some key visual identity markers, you're going to actually be in quite a strong position compared to others that haven't even thought about it, no matter how bullet point or brief those are, as long as everyone's uniform in their understanding of it within your team.
I suppose those key like identity markers, this leads us quite nicely onto chatting to the delightful Matty about the design side of things. And Matty, I picked up on a phrase that was said by Matt, who operates at Stout in America, and he talks about the 2-pint test. You know, the first pint you're buying off the back of, you've been visually drawn to a can or a lens or a clip. And then, of course, the second pint is the quality of the liquid. You know, you go, actually, I quite enjoyed that. I'm going to have another one. In your mind and how you work, how does that design shape the perception of your target consumer before, you know, the liquids even touch lips?
Yeah, I think, well, it's kind of the entire, you know, initiation of the experience, really. And just to start where Harrie left off, that, you know, the strategy, you know, like oftentimes I'm even so tempted to jump into design before jumping to strategy because you get that, immediate fix of, oh, what could something look like if we changed it? But it is so important to take a step back and try to figure out everything else and kind of create a map. So the strategy is your map, and then you can confidently and also narrow in your perspective on the various design options. Like we could create anything. Like now we can, any design we want for a can or a bottle or a clip. And so it's really about understanding the strategy, what the goal of that is. And then for us, as say, coming at it from a design or creative angle, is to plant the flag in a particular territory. And what that territory is the connection to your target consumer, which Harrie and the strategy have defined for us. And so when we talk about the 2-pint test and the selection of that, so you've got the 3 seconds for someone to, you've got to win that argument to pick something over this or that on the shelf or in the tap badges in front of you. You need to tap into something like an intangible signal. And that's what the design is doing. That's what the identity is doing. It's difficult to talk about creative and visuals without giving specific examples, but you kind of indicate like the pillars behind me. When developing that brand, we had a very clear mindset that they are a lager specific brewery. And so we were at the time, this was 5 years ago when we did the rebrand, where every brewery was doing crazy stuff. It was, how can we out peacock each other on the shelf? And so I had a look at that and thought, well, why don't we go the opposite way? Everyone was moving into a can, let's go to a bottle. Everyone's doing crazy, vibrant colors and patterns and cartoons and beautiful illustrations. I'm an illustrator, I love that stuff too. But we made a decision, let's go typographic. Let's do something that also no one could copy us. I created the typeface for it. So that we had our own typeface that we could use, that no one else could take from us. And it became a key brand asset that is now recognizable for the brand. And so then when you get into the second choice, then it's really about the quality of it. But also something going back to the intangibles, is I like to think about, if I'm, say, holding a bottle or a beer can, that also reflects me. Like when I'm seen with it, or if I'm having a barbecue, like I pick something that is good for that situation. And that's the kind of beer it is, the beer that I love, but also how it looks and how the brand feels to me. That we all like certain brands, we interact with them daily, hourly, but we are constantly curating our own environments. And so as when we're thinking about the identity, we need to think about the consumer and their environment that they're curating for themselves, and we find our way into that, or we bring them into ours.
Off the back of that as well, is there a difference between just having a good looking identity and then something which is commercially suitable? Because we've talked in the past about every brewery has a particular goal they want to achieve, be it supermarket listings, growth, more people through the tap room. Is there a distinct difference between what just nice design is and effective design is?
Yeah, 100%. I think there's kind of the trap on both sides of that. You have we have rules and systems for you've got to have your ABV and your hops sell really well. Putting session on things could bump the sales of it. We know all that stuff. We already all know that. I think sometimes you can fall into the trap of that, of becoming same. So the cookie cutter approach, which is kind of the death of a lot of brands, is you need to have differentiation. But then on the other side as well, you have similar issues where you can be too creative, let's say, too experimental, where people can't make out what you're actually trying to say, and it might push them away from you and exclude them. So I think you have to find, it's understanding the rules and then knowing how to break them really. And I see a lot of us, and we discussed this last week about, breweries following their peers and seeing what works for X brewery. Hey, we should try that as well. But that doesn't always work because this is a competitive market. And if you are seen as a follower, you tend to continue to follow, and you won't be the winner, the leader. So I think it's a tricky one. That's why I feel like, something I work at like every day, and every project I'm working on is, okay, is this understandable for every consumer, not just nerds like myself, but for general consumers who've never had a craft beer, never had even a beer, their first beer. And then also, is it exciting? Is it creative? Like, is it fun? Like, also, is it fun? We need to make sure that we all love this industry because it's fun and it's really creative. So yeah, just trying to keep that energy.
Jack, when a brand has a solid identity, does that make the marketing much easier? Because I think being consistent in terms of how you turn up through your marketing has got to be important as well, right?
Without doubt, strategy and identity essentially bring buy-in through the company, through the brewery, where everybody top to bottom all knows where they're pointing, how they're talking, and the type of visuals and display and storytelling that needs to happen. Effective marketing is essentially storytelling. It's communicating something with the end consumer. It's resonating with them, it's reflecting with them, and it is engaging with them. If the person doing the marketing doesn't know how to speak, each time they go to make a communication, it's subjective to whatever the title of that is. So they might talk about something in some way, and because it's easier to talk about something else in a different way, they sort of flip between the communication style or the method or the words. When you get really geeky with marketing, you're talking about 4 words different in a title, or 1 word different in a title. Is it an emoji here or not? Like, it gets really, really granular. And if that is not been clearly defined all the way through the business, like Harrie was saying, you all just sitting there trying to make that decision. Whereas if everything is clearly defined, you just know it, and it just happens, and it is something that becomes inherently easy for that person to do. Marketing becomes really difficult when you try and have to make a decision about every single thing that you're trying to do. So you're trying to launch a beer, you don't know who your true end consumer, your ICP, like who is going to drink this. You don't know how to speak to them in a really coherent way. And you then end up talking either too generally, so like, here is a beer, or you speak hyper niche where you go super geek. You talk about, I don't know, grist, and they've used grape must and all of this sort of stuff in your post, and you're trying to get, like Matty was saying, first time drinkers. It's just not the right communication. So yeah, I agree.
I concur. One thing I wanted to throw out to the collective is the idea of building experiences. Like Matty, last week you touched on working in Easter eggs into your design. Harrie, you and we have collectively been working on brand experiences that kind of expand beyond what you'd see on a clip or a lens. And personally, I feel more breweries need to realize the strength that comes from actually creating an experience from their beer than just the liquid. I appreciate this is a curveball because we hadn't talked about it, that we're going to pick this up on the show, but I think it's a really interesting one. Like, delivering a cool experience, what should it do, and what are the benefits to a brewery? Who wants to pick that one up to begin with?
I can do it if you're happy for me to elaborate on experience a little bit.
Go for it, mate.
I think experience can be something really specific, like an activation. I think a brand experience can also be quite general. So whether that's ensuring that if someone looks at your Instagram feed, is that a window into your brand world? Does that accurately show everything that is your brand world, that's part of someone's experience. If they've tried a beer for the first time from a new brewery, people often go on Instagram, other things, whatever your version of that is for your brewery, your most important socials platform, that is part of their experience. They will really subconsciously start to think, oh, there's a shop by a mountain, okay, they're slightly outdoorsy, or oh, there's a collaboration with the hip-hop artist, okay, maybe that's something that this brand's into, and you naturally start to think, is this me, do I fit in? So there's subtle pieces like that. And then there's, I guess, examples like if a brand has a really strong D2C route to market, if their web shop's great, oftentimes you'll find that it's not just because they've got amazing regular new releases, although that can do a lot of good, especially back in the glory days, but it will often be to do with what that unboxing experience is. What is that person getting while they're drinking that beer that they're often paying a higher price for than they might, from a supermarket craft beer or something a little bit more day to day. It's about adding value beyond the product itself. And then if you do want to get into activations and bits and bobs that are a bit more on the nose in terms of experience, I guess it is there opportunities where someone literally can become part of your brand world and feel it, rather than in that sort of internal way that they do through the other means I've just spoke about.
Mm-hmm. And you talked about unboxing there. Like, Matty, I became familiar with your work because of an epic unboxing experience that I had, which was the Pillars unboxing. Could you give us a little bit of insight into what it was? Because it's not just your normal kind of corrugated cardboard box and you've slammed 12 bottles in it, is it?
No, it's entirely custom, and I have to give a lot of credit to the guys at Pillars, and particularly Sammy, for working this up and having the opportunity to do something so custom, that you open it up and now it has, if you order from their website, your name is handwritten inside the box, and we have this story as you experience the beers. And but yeah, I think really it comes down to a lot of what breweries are doing and can do nowadays is tell many stories in many different ways. And I think they're starting to, it's not so, okay, we've launched another double dry hopped IPA. Now it's, we've done this in collaboration with not just a brewery, but perhaps a coffee shop that's local to us, or a musician, and if you get the pack sent out to you, it comes with a little magazine in it or something else, or you're invited to go somewhere. Another thing we've just started doing with Pillars is collaborating with different restaurants on specific recipes that meal goes best with a particular beer, and that we're sending that out to people who buy the beer from the brewery, and it's because if it's in your local area, then it just invites more collaboration, and it just builds that whole it's not so much of a massive Heineken activation, it's more a community driven brand narrative activation. So it's trying to think a bit outside the box, also dealing with a smaller budget, and trying to help your local community. That's what really draws me to working with smaller businesses. But yeah, I'm not sure. I kind of went off a bit away from the original question, but
I think you delivered, my man, though. It's a wonderful unboxing experience. So let's get some more sales for Pillars. Everyone, go and order a box from Pillars. The other thing, Harry, I don't know if... Oh, sorry, Jack, go on, mate.
I was going to just say that to add into the mix with events and activations, consumer behavior has changed. I think we all know this, and it's something that the head of Thirst says was that I probably can't put into better words, just is demographics is dead. And people's spending habits are around experience, and it's not necessarily who your immediate groups are, it's about what events you like. So it's now running groups, it is now cycling teams, it is hiking groups, whatever it is. Breweries need to tap into this hyper niche demographic. So if you're putting on an event at your brewery, could you do a themed quiz around that I don't know, people that are into Dolly Parton, it's a Dolly Parton quiz, it's hay bales are out, bring a community of people down, because they will speak to each other and find each other. It's impossible now to try and get 25, like an arbitrary 25 to 35 group of people into your brewery. It is all around their identity now.
It's basically what I was going to touch on in a slightly less eloquent way, so thanks very much. But Harrie, like you and I were we've actually been coming up with brand experiences very recently. And to come back to the strategy side of things, I think because we went through the strategy process, the activations and the experiences that we've been able to suggest for this client is so very them. This is really annoying that I can't talk about it live, and I feel like I've just set myself up for a failure here. But realistically, like, this is a document that doesn't contain, oh, you should have a pizza wagon pop up at the tap room, or you should have a singer-songwriter rock up and sing for 30 minutes about how their partner is separated from them. Like, these are genuine, so on-brand ideas that if another brewery tried to do it, they'd be like, why are they doing that? It doesn't make sense. But because we went through the strategy side of things, it's a continuation, it's a building of this world. Tell me you agree, Harrie, please.
I completely agree. And I think I was delighted actually when we'd presented our activation ideas for this project, in that, yeah, we did include some, I guess, hygiene sort of activations and experiences, things that any brewery doing branding well, especially if they have a pubco, things that they should be doing. But everything was tailored with real care to attention of what the brand was and why. So embedded into each idea, there's what brand pillar does this align with? What specific one of our sort of target audiences does it really sing to? And I think it can be all kinds of things, can't it, in experience? It can be something as simple as, what is that at the bar purchase moment if you're an on-trade business? You know, what is that thing that sways you towards that clip or lens? What conversation with a member of staff at that bar can really sway your interest or make you take that risk of purchase, which is such a huge thing for people now when it comes to budgets and identity and that experiential sort of buying habit that we all now have. And then, yeah, you could have the more crazy things. I think because we've done such a brilliant bit of brand work early on, Tim, ideas that I'd come into the project thinking that we'd maybe do, and I think you had the same, completely got rid of them by the point we were actually putting pen to paper with what we were going to propose in terms of activations, because they didn't feel appropriate anymore once we'd really dug into the nitty gritty of what that brand's all about. And that is it. It's not being precious. It's not you that you're talking about with a brand. It's who is this brand and what are they into and how do they show up?
100%, mate. Yeah, half of the things that I noted down through the process were like, oh, that's not going to work with these people we're trying to get in front of. But that is the wonder and the joy of doing a strategy project, you know, where like it gives you that safety net to go, yeah, that's not right, ignore it. Jack, let's bring you back into the conversation, dude, and actually talk a little bit more about marketing, because I'd like to steal the strategy and design side of things. But not everyone, that's not a fair comment. A lot of people these days are stuck on a hamster wheel of, we have to put content out. You know, we just got to get stuff out there. That's our strategy from a marketing side of things. But that's not really going to move the needle these days, is it?
No, and I'm going to say breweries with just this massive, broad brushstroke. There's obviously amazing things that people are doing, but I'll focus on maybe some of the things that are making marketing fall apart. The perception that movement is momentum is not the case. Something that is strategically aligned, you know, with the business, with the brand, is going to be far more effective than something, or 5 posts, 10 posts that are just sort of thrown out there. You've stolen my line about the hamster wheel from the start. But we should always be challenging, what is the outcome? What's the point? Why are we doing this? And I'm going to stick up for all of the people that have been perceived to be failing in marketing, that, you know, not just exclusive in breweries, but the world over in almost every company, every layer of the business is allowed to make mistakes and fail and waste money. Brewers might miss hop, they might over alc, under alc, they might get it off flavor and it's dumped down the drain, or has to be diluted or whatever. Marketing is never afforded that sort of budget. Let's say that mistake cost the brewery £5,000. What if you gave your marketing team 5,000 to make a mistake with? Like, what happens? Nobody ever tests that within small businesses because it always seems too risky, but because it's on the front end of the product, everyone's happy to take that risk. So I just want to stand up for marketers, but I'll go into a few of the other things that maybe are common traps. Breweries always seem to chase whatever new platform arises, exists. What makes this one that has just appeared going to be more effective than the one that you didn't make successful last time? Maybe take 2 steps back and go, where is our customer? Where do they hang out? How do they communicate? Where are they communicating with their friends, their other things outside of your brewery? So it might be that you're attached to sort of fitness, or the Peak District, or it might be a location. All of those things start to seep into your strategy and your identity, which allow you to speak to those people where they are. So it might be that you are on community groups for walking in the Peak District because you're Thornbridge and that is where you are. If you were to break that down and maybe assign social medias for breweries, you could say like Jubel, TikTok, Fast Pace is where people are. It's in London. It's that type of beer. Cloudwater might be Instagram because they're sort of a mature beer market beer now. Adnams is Old World in terms of like the people that they're speaking to. They're local to me. They're in every single pub. I can't seem to get a different beer at the moment. It's all I'm allowed to drink. But their audience is defined by the borders of where I live. And I'm not saying that breweries can't cross post from platform to platform. They have to stick to one. But you have to really focus on one, understand and learn your identity, and understand and learn how that platform works, how people communicate on it, how people interact, because those 2 things will then start to boil or build your marketing strategy, which comes off the main global strategy. Other mistakes I see quite often is measuring noise and not impact. So marketing might be like, we need X amount of followers, we need this much engagement on a post. But if that's not defined as solving something in the strategy, why are you asking that person to do it? So what might be more effective is we need email signups for our website D2C sales. We need trade MQLs, marketing qualified leads, that our sales staff can convert into on-trade like leads. Survey responses, because we want more information about who our consumer is, what they want, the next beer they want to see, what event it might be that they want to see. It could be ticket sales for an event. Like, there's loads of actual goals that can be created that aren't just vanity metrics or throwaway, we need to give the marketing team something to aim for. Let's reach 10,000 followers. Like, great. What happens at 10,000? Do your sales suddenly go up? Don't know. Now, there's probably a caveat on the followers. If you're going into supermarkets, they do potentially look at that as a metric because they want to see how much potential volume they could sell. But I would use paid marketing as an arm to solve that issue. Should we go on to good marketing, or would anyone like to interject?
I love it. I think you're spot on. Like, I'd say, let's see some good marketing, dude. Like, let's give the listeners what they want. What should they be doing, man? Because I'm pretty confident. I loved your comment about brewers are given the affordance to throw 5K's worth of beer down the drain, but never from a marketing budget. It's phenomenal. But I've got a feeling a lot of people listening going, we ain't giving the marketing team 5K.
No, but when was the last time you gave them a budget? Like, it might just be that you have their time to exchange for social media interaction. What happens if they're allowed to purchase costumes or run events or, buy props, or, social media is about being social. It's about engaging with your audience. If they're just taking pictures of fermenters or pictures of hops or pictures of cans, what are you doing to engage that end consumer to come buy your beer? You need to tell a story. You need to engage them where they are. You need to engage them on a level that they want to communicate. How many, like when we're not looking at brewery posts, how many times do we scroll Instagram and it's, I sprayed my ankle running to the comments? Like, you need to create content that gets people talking, gets people commenting, has a difference of opinion, supporting. Like, it just needs to be engaging, and posting something that is flat and just consumable doesn't achieve much. It can achieve a little bit, but it doesn't achieve anything near as much as if it could. So if we take a picture of the fermenter as an example, could you run a competition around that where they've got to find an Easter egg in the picture that disseminates what that next beer style is, or they've got to find an Easter egg that gives them the ABV, or there's a million different things you could do. But just posting that picture saying, guess what's coming next week, doesn't really do anything. Good marketing, I'll read from my notes now rather than going off on a tangent, reinforces strategic decisions, makes brand easier to understand over time, builds community, and focuses effort where it converts. Not specifically sales directly, but there's loads of other things that it might be site visits, it might be Google reviews, it might be map searches. All of that is easily trackable nowadays. We have an unbelievable wealth of technology at our hands now. So, set goals that achieve something.
Mic drop moment there. As silence feels. Love it, man. Thank you. And
I do understand that I'm the only marketing person in the corner, so there'll be a little bit less interaction with me.
But I'm hoping people are listening going, yeah, get that. That's strong. Maybe someone put an emoji in the chat window so Jack knows he's not alone in this.
Jack, you're not alone in this. I completely agree with everything you said. I think I feel like I keep saying quite bland day-to-day things here, but the thing that crosses the good and bad marketing points you're making there, I think, is that when just translated into reality, if you're just churning things out and your marketing team or single marketer or founder who does a bit of marketing, whoever it is putting time into something that's not actually worthwhile, you waste so much effort, energy, time on it. And it can be as simple as that. You can spend that time and energy and effort and money doing something better when it's got proper thinking behind it.
And if there's any owners, founders, head brewers, people that are important, and you've handed marketing over to somebody as a add-on to their role, and you're expecting things above and beyond their spare 2 hours a week, maybe you need to cut them a little slack.
Jack, you'll be happy to hear in Instagram we've had some thumbs up emojis and people going they completely agree. And then I like that there's someone's just put a thinking face, which is either that's they're pondering because you've made them think about something, or they're like, what is this guy saying? Like, it's such an open emoji. I don't know what it means.
I'm sorry if people feel seen, but you can message me afterwards and I'll be your therapist.
Yeah, find Jack on LinkedIn and he'll coach you through it all. We've been chatting for more than 40 minutes, which I knew was going to happen, but it's fine. Let's talk about the joyful. What is the one hill that you would die on when it comes to brewery, branding, identity design, marketing? I'll go first, so you can't claim it. But my genuine opinion is breweries need to get outside of the jar. Like, the phrase I use is, it's hard to read the label when you're stuck inside the jar. And what happens is breweries just regurgitate. They use the same language around quality ingredients, building a community. You look at the competition, and as Matty rightly said, you imitate, you copy just because that's what's been done. If you get outside the jar, if you look at who you're really trying to get in front of and understand your market and align that with your goals, that's when you can start to do some phenomenal work. Harrie, what about you?
My hill to die on, I think, would be the brand strategy. Adopting brand strategy effectively is the most cost-effective way to challenge as a brand and to actually compete as a brand, whether that's not wasting time with your rolling resource, such as, humans, marketing people, or it's not getting 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, months down the line with an external designer or agency where the brief itself hasn't been quite bang on. And so you end up in this cycle of revisions and expense that's not quite right. I think nailing that core brand strategy down is a really simple way of competing effectively and carries a lot of weight if it's watertight in conversations with trade as well, whether that's supermarkets or I've completely lost my words, significant on-trade listings and whatnot. It's very cost effective and a really key way to challenge.
Yeah, the gatekeepers, right? You put a strategy in front of a gatekeeper who's going to allow you to play in the next level or wherever it is, and it opens the door much quicker. Matty, what's your hill?
Yeah, mine is, it's something I try to remind myself of every day, but it's the last 10% of any project is where 90% of the quality lives. And because, and that's, I personally refuse to let the good enough be the standard of, because we're tired now or this project has dragged on. But, hopefully it hasn't dragged on, but I see too often that, starting strong and finishing weak. And I think as well, like to everything that's been discussed already, like Harrie and talking about the strategy, and the strategy might be really strong, but we've got to carry that all the way through to the person who gets, the beer at the end of it. And, I'm a big pusher of perfection and I, try to, everyone I work with that's my kind of, let's push this right to the end. And also to what Jack was just talking about in marketing, I think it translates, down into doing the thing of just posting stuff to social media just to tick the box. That to me is, we need to really be making sure that final 10%, that bit that goes to the eyeballs of the consumer is perfect. We've considered everything. So that's my hill.
Beautiful. Jack, send us home, man.
I wrote down brand tells a story, product is the story, marketing reinforces the story. And that should be sort of an easy way to picture the sort of the landscape of what we do. Marketing should always reinforce the story, not distract from it. Going back to the strategy, if everything is really dialed in, everything looks really cohesive, everything in the brewery, all of the employees, all of the staff, everyone all knows what's happening, direction that they're meant to be going, what they're meant to be talking about, it all becomes really easy and natural. And I would just say that my hill to die on is marketing is easy. From the perspective that if all of those things are in place, all you're doing is just reflecting the story.
Nice. Smooth. Well, guys and girls, team, collective, whatever we should refer to ourselves as, the collective, thank you for today. This has been really cool. And of course, this continues because, as I mentioned at the start of the show, 3 out of 4 of us will be at BrFw&x in Liverpool this year. We are going to be taking to the stage. Unfortunately, Matty, well, lucky for you, obviously, you're traveling, you're doing exciting things overseas, but you're not going to be in the country at the time. But Harrie, Jack, and myself will be taking to stage at BrFw&x, talking about branding for breweries and ultimately how to create a brand that sells more beer. It's very Ronseal, but that's what everyone needs at the end of the day, people. Some clear guidance and structure. So if anyone's attending BrFw&x and they want to catch up with any of us, give us a shout. We're all tagged in LinkedIn. You've got me, Tim the Brand Weaver, Jack Coomber, Harrie Kelly, Matty McMullen. You will find us on social media. You can find us wherever. If equally you're very interested in what we do as the collective, you want to see the work, you want to see the results, head over to www.thebrandweavercollective.com. That's www.thebrandweavercollective.com. And you'll be able to get in touch with us via our online web form. That felt a little bit cheesy, but I think we got the message across, guys. It's good. Thank you, everyone. Guys, this has been phenomenal. Enjoy the rest of the day. Have a brilliant week, everyone. You rock.
Cheers. Bye.
Bye.
That's a wrap on this week's episode of Branding for Breweries. If you got something great from it, hit follow, like, and subscribe on your favorite streaming app. Or even better, leave a review, share it with your brewery pals, or get in touch, because I want to chat to you. Rock on!